Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel, and in today's video we're going to be looking at the orchids that we've had in bloom for the month of November. This month has been a really great month for blooms, and I've also got a lot of orchids in spike. I'm going to be a little bit more selective with what I actually talk to you about today, just showing you the orchids that are more kind of fully in bloom and that I haven't touched on in other videos, because at some point I have to kind of draw a line and these videos could end up getting very long otherwise. So we're just going to talk about the orchids that you haven't seen up until now that are in bloom for this month. So the first orchid we're going to talk about is the Catasetum Orchidglade Jack of Diamonds. The Orchidglade Jack of Diamonds is a primary cross between Catasetum pileatum and Catasetum expansum. Pileatum is renowned for having extremely large flowers, some of the largest in the genus I believe. And the primary cross here in the Orchidglade certainly doesn't disappoint in that regard. The flowers are absolutely huge. They look like something out of a science fiction movie. They're amazing and they look almost a little bit demonic actually. They're really beautiful, this glossy kind of burgundy colour, and you can see some slight rippling of yellow coming through. Yellow seems to be the kind of background colour that underlies this. So beautiful. It's got really interesting shape to it, the way that the petals and sepals kind of merge into one up here, and the little wings that it's got. It's a really beautiful hybrid. This year it's produced quite a show for me. So we've actually got 8 flowers on this. They are all kind of facing in different directions. You can see the main plant just behind there, and it is quite a large plant anyway. But the actual flowers kind of dwarf the plant even. They are absolutely huge and so incredibly majestic. I'm just going to turn it around so you can see the display a little bit better. The flower spike was so big I have staked it because I was worried about it snapping. I don't think that is an actual danger, but it did seem very unstable to me, so I staked it, and every time I walk past my shelves this is hanging off the edge. And it worries me so much that I'm going to knock it and trigger all the pollen and all the flowers are then going to fade. So I'm super careful with this one at the moment. It's got the most interesting fragrance that I don't think is often really described. It just smells like toothpaste to me. It's kind of very pepperminty, but with like an undertone of maybe cloves or aniseed. It's not entirely pleasant, I've got to be honest. So that is the Catasetum Orchidglade Jack of Diamonds. Next up we have my really quite majestic Paphiopedilum, and this is the only Paphiopedilum I owned for a long time. This is the American hybrid variety. I got this at a garden centre and it just had one fan which was blooming at the time last year. It's since put out quite a few new fans, and then it has bloomed off the first new fan that it put out from the older growth. So this is the growth that it had when I got it, which has actually grown a lot in terms of leaf span, and that's the one that it flowered from last year. And the next new growth it's then flowered from, and we've actually got 3 more new growths at the back there, so we've got the potential, maybe even in a few months for another flower. You never know. I think this is their time to flower though. So this is the American hybrid. I think there are a couple of different varieties of the American hybrid. I'm quite new to Paphs, and I've since kind of realising I could be successful with this one, started getting a few more of the kind of the more species Paphiopedilums. And I just absolutely adore the waxiness of its pouch. It's just such a majestic flowering. It's produced quite a large kind of sepal, I guess. Is that a sepal? I think it's a sepal. Which it didn't do last year, but I really like the effect. So you've got the absolutely stunning, majestic, I have no idea with these orchids. Just give me a Phalaenopsis or a Miltoniopsis and I can tell my petals and my sepals, but as soon as you start getting into this sort of thing and Rosstrapias, you know, it's a flower. And you've got a beautiful effect here. And actually I've just noticed there seems to be something else going on there. I don't know if we've got a second bud starting to form. These aren't usually ones that produce more than one flower, so I'm not sure what's going on there, whether it's just a little bit of a deformity but that's definitely new. Who knows? Anyway, it's not a sequential bloomer, so this flower will last a few months and then fade from my experience from last time. You can see, if I get you in a bit closer, all of the hairs that line the flower, and it's such an interesting flower. I absolutely love them. They're not traditionally beautiful, but they're just so fascinating. got beautiful, beautiful patterning on the flower, such a waxy finish on these. And then if we go and kind of look inside, when I first brought this home, my boyfriend thought it was like a carnivorous plant or something. But it's just full of these little hairs inside the lip there. It's just incredibly fascinating. Really, really just love the kind of majestic nature of these flowers. You couldn't pass one of these by without taking a second look, whether you like them or not. And I guess they are a bit polarizing in that department, but I just think they're absolutely stunning. So this is my Paphiopedilum American hybrid. It's absolutely huge flower, and the plant itself is looking quite healthy at the moment, I think. So I'm quite pleased with that. It's grown semi-hydro with a mix of Leca and Ceramis, and it seems to be doing well in that. Next up we have my Phalaenopsis Joy Fairytale, and this one isn't quite in full bloom yet. We've still got a couple of buds to open on another spike that it's formed, but we've got 2 buds open on this spike, and I just wanted to show you guys because whenever she opens, she brings me so much happiness. She's such a beautiful, beautiful flower, and fragrant in a very similar way to the Sweet Memory Leodoro is fragrant. It's kind of a citrusy, mild Phalaenopsis fragrance. It's not overpowering, and it's not gonna be detectable from a huge distance, but it's certainly when it's got lots of flowers open you can notice it. I just love the striping pattern on these and the beautiful tropical colours that she has. Such a beautiful flower. This is a pyloric variety and a like full pyloric form, so the petals there really truly mimic the lip. You actually wouldn't necessarily know which one was which, or if your flower had opened upside down or not. Such a beautiful hybrid. So that is the Phalaenopsis Joy Fairytale. Next up we have the really beautiful Sarcochilus olivaceus, and this is an absolutely gorgeous little miniature Sarcochilus species with the most interesting greenish yellow flowers. They look like little bugs to me. I think they're just beautiful. They can usually produce much longer flower displays than this. However, I took these plants off a mount when they arrived, and I think that has set them back slightly. So I've got 3 flowers on this one. I had 1 flower on the other, but it sort of opened face down in the media and isn't doing great. So we've got these 3 from this plant. You can see a little root tip poking up there. This hasn't had any issues adapting to being potted. You can see that the roots that were on it when it arrived, which was when it was on a mount, have survived, no issues. It's making new ones and it's growing kind of actively, and got some beautiful flowers. These have been open for about 2 weeks now, and they are very slightly fragrant actually. It was one of the few fragrant Sarcochilus species from what I'm aware, and it's got a very light, pleasant kind of citrusy smell. Nothing overpowering, nothing you'd notice unless you actually smelt the plant, but it's really nice to added bonus to have a fragrant flower on a Sarcochilus. The flower itself, as you can see, is quite small, has really cute little structure to it. This arrived with 2 plants on the mount. This one started growing a new leaf since, and they seem to be doing very well. So hopefully next time they flower, I will maybe get a few more flowers than this. But I'm very happy with this considering it was taken off a mount and has had to also put energy into growing new roots. So that's the Sarcochilus olivaceus. Next up we have the beautiful Miltoniopsis Sunglow, and I think this is the Sunglow Amazing variety. Either way it's pretty spectacular. So you've got a beautiful white Miltoniopsis with this really striking contrasting yellow patterning around the lip and nothing else at all, and I absolutely love the simplicity of this orchid. It's absolutely stunning, and in my eyes I'm very drawn to yellow orchids. And this is kind of the closest that I can find to a yellow orchid in Europe easily. I know that in other areas like the US, maybe the yellow Miltoniopsis are more widely available, but they just don't seem to be very widely available in Europe. So this is kind of the closest I can find, and it doesn't disappoint at all. When it first opened, I didn't actually think that it was fragrant, but after a couple of weeks of being open, the fragrance really started to come out. So I think it was just taking its time. This is the orchid that I bought from eBay and repotted with you guys in my kind of repotting Miltoniopsis and transitioning them to reduce transplant shock, and it's bloomed absolutely beautifully. So we've got 6 flowers here arranged in a really beautiful cascade. This one just kind of hangs off my shelf, and I'm greeted by it when I go into the orchid room every morning, and it just puts a smile on my face. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful orchid, and absolutely stunning colours, and the fragrance is to die for. It contrasts so beautifully with my Nelly Eyelet Red Velvet, which is on the next shelf, and I will be talking about that one next, which brings me quite nicely onto the next orchid. So next up we have the Nelly Eyelet Red Velvet variety, and the colour really isn't captured on screen very well, but this is such a beautiful, beautiful deep dark red. It's just the most red kind of variety of the Nelly Eyelet that you can get, with the least kind of tessellations on the lip, and it's just an absolutely stunning orchid. It's my favourite of the Nelly Eyelet varieties and possibly one of my favourite orchids. The zesty lemony fragrance just permeates the whole grow room. It overpowers Miltoniopsis, it overpowers everything else, and you can just smell Nelly Eyelet when you walk into the grow room, which to me is just the scent of fresh lemons every time you walk in. They're most fragrant during the day, like Miltoniopsis, between sort of 11 AM and 2 PM, but you can definitely smell it at different times of the day still, whereas the Miltoniopsis, I find that by the time I get home from work, they don't have any fragrance, so I think the Nelly is more fragrant in that regard. Just an absolutely beautiful, beautiful orchid, and she's transitioning very well into the Synthic mix that I've put her in now, with a Synthic and Pumice and Leca mix and a top layer of the non-wicking grit. And just to show you quickly, the roots aren't bothered by the horticultural grit, the non-wicking pebbles that I put on the top, which is a massive leap forward for me, and obviously means that it opens up my options with keeping my Miltoniopsis oncidiums, Nelly Eyelet in inorganic mixes. So that is the beautiful Oncidopsis, or Burragiara, I think is the old classification, Nelly Eyelet. Next up, we have the absolutely gorgeous Phalaenopsis celebensis. The celebensis is a species Phalaenopsis with these gorgeous clusters of such interesting shaped flowers. They remind me of little birds, but they're super interesting in the shape. Very sort of un-Phalaenopsis-like, you might think. They produce these massive flower spikes and then gradually open flowers along the spike. You can get clusters of sort of 40 flowers or more I've seen on them. And this one's just sort of half open at the moment, but I thought I'd show it to you because it's so beautiful. It's a new bloom for me. I've not had this orchid in bloom before, and I don't know how long the flower's going to last, so I wanted to show you it now while they are still fresh, the ones that are open. So it's an absolutely beautiful sort of miniature Phalaenopsis species. It's a warm growing species, and it's I think usually a summer blooming species, but it seems to have bloomed a little bit later for me. Another feature of this Phalaenopsis that I adore is the leaves. The leaves are the most interesting Phalaenopsis species leaves that I think I've seen, actually. You have beautiful mottled leaf Phalaenopsis orchid options. I really love this one. There's a few different, like the Schilleriana has beautiful leaves. There's a few other species phals that have beautiful leaves, but this just takes the prize in my opinion, because it's almost like a bluish silver background colour. They're just so beautiful. So you could have this just a beautiful foliage plant on its own, even without these gorgeous flowers. So that is the Phalaenopsis celebensis. Next up, we've got the beautiful Dendrobium banana chocolate, which is a Nook Dendrobium commercial name. It's not a registered hybrid. I thought I'd show you this because I didn't think I'd shown you it in my last Dendrobium video, or the What's in Bloom. So it's fully open now. Got quite a nice display. Beautiful, beautiful yellow flowers with a deep kind of purple centre and purple kind of veining out from the lip. Really stunning hybrid. One thing I really love about this hybrid is it was one of the few fragrant Dendrobium Phalaenopsis type hybrids, I guess you would call them. So it's got a really nice light floral fragrance. So that is the Nook Dendrobium banana chocolate, and it's quite the monster. Absolutely huge cane this year that it's bloomed off. So who knows how big it's going to get on the next one. So that is the Nook Dendrobium Phalaenopsis type banana chocolate. Next up, we've got some really beautiful Vandas in bloom, and this is no ID bluish purple. They call them blue, but they're really purple Vanda hybrids, and this is what I believe to be the Asarcocus or Vanda Princess Mikasa, based on some of the pictures that I've seen online. But they were bought as no ID Vanda hybrids, so it is what it is. They are still beautiful regardless, and the most reliable Vandaceous type bloomer that I have. These Flower Shop garden centre hybrids are so incredibly vigorous. I know many people can't pick them up from garden centres, but garden centres that do stock a range of orchids will usually have this sort of thing. So this one is obviously the purple variety, and we currently have 10 flowers on this beauty. Really, really stunning, huge flower display. And this one is the most reliable bloomer that I have. So this blooms for me 3 to 4 times a year, every year. This is the 3rd blooming this year. It did another blooming late last year as well. So I don't know if it'll squeeze another one out or whether it'll wait till January, which is when it started again this year. But this is a beautiful, easy to bloom, easy to care for Vanda that I absolutely love and is super rewarding to own. And again, this one's the 3rd blooming for this type this year, and neither of these are fragrant hybrids, and they are quite large. They're both still in their baskets, and these are the ones that I'm going to keep basketed because they're slightly lower light requirements than some of the other Vanda species that I have, so they're happy kind of hanging off the edge of my shelves. So that is the Vanda Purple no ID hybrid, and what I believe it may be the Princess Mikasa hybrid. I think that is everything that's currently fully in bloom for this month. Obviously, I've shown you the Oncidium Shari Baby, which had such an impressive display this month. I can't resist showing you one last look without getting it down from its shelf. But that's kind of everything that is fully in bloom, and I will update you guys possibly in separate videos when a couple of my other orchids open, which should be quite soon. I've got quite a lot of buds and spikes at the moment. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like or subscribe to my channel for more regular orchid updates, and I will see you guys later. Bye!